Hey YouTube family, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Chiquita and this channel is all about lifestyle, fashion, and travel. So in today's video, I just want to take a moment to breathe and talk to you guys about turning 33. What that's meaning to me right now as I walk into a life that I've manifested and how I am continuing to manifest the life that I'm walking into right now. Okay, so for starters, let's talk about how I got here. I've been living in Atlanta for 4 years now. I believe this is the third place I've lived outside of my hometown. So I've lived in the Northeast. I've lived in Denver prior to here, live in Atlanta now. And now I'm moving to New York City. New York City is something that I have been manifesting and dreaming about for years now. It has been 7 years in the making that I have been fantasizing, vision boarding, buying a property in Jersey City right outside of New York City. And I've always had this vision that I wanted to live in a suburb in Jersey with my husband, raise our kids there, but work in New York City. And it's crazy because right now it is just me, but I am moving to New York City and I will be renting in Jersey City most likely with anticipation to buy something in Jersey City after a year or two maybe. I do have a home here in Atlanta. When I moved to Atlanta from Denver, I moved straight into the home that I purchased that I'm in right now. And it's been 4 years since I closed on this home. And that has been a blessing. Me being able to get into the market at the time that I did, it was just divine timing. And that was the selling points of me moving to Atlanta actually. The company I work for built up this new presence here in Atlanta, this new office, and I decided to come here instead of go to New York because there was an opportunity for me to buy and I could afford to buy here at that time and not in New York. But now your girl now the money is looking even better. And let me not ramble too much. But yes, so how I manifested where I'm at in life right now. And I just want to caveat that last year at this time, I was having a very, very, very bad season in life. I had lost my dog, Sharpie. And so Sharpie and I moved here from Denver together. I bought this townhome because I wanted him to have the space. If I didn't have Sharpie, if I wasn't his mom, I probably would have ended up like buying like a high-rise condo somewhere or something. But I wanted him to have space to play. I wanted him to have a neighborhood and all of that. Unfortunately, Sharpie passed away a year ago, unexpectedly. My worst nightmare, he was going on 4 years old. This was just shy of his 4th birthday. People that know me personally know that Sharpie is my son. I do anything for him. It's just, yeah. It was absolutely devastating, absolutely crippling. Unexpected loss is something that is very, very tough if you've gone through unexpected loss. And I'll just say, like, the grief that I've experienced in losing Sharpie, it has been really, really tough, but also it is a symbol of the love that I have for him and will continue to have for him. So Sharpie has been a really big blessing in my life, and now he is my angel and looking over me. But last year at this time was very, very hard. And actually, it was so hard that mentally I couldn't go to work. Like I was on short-term disability because my mental health was just not there. I was diagnosed with what you call complicated grief. And complicated grief is usually associated with very deep depression. You know, grief does come with bouts of depression, but diagnosed depression where you cannot fulfill your daily tasks that you're responsible for. So that's something I've navigated and overcome in this past year. But grief is something that will always sit with you when you go through it, especially when you go through a huge loss. The sun has finally come out and is shining a bit. And so we moving forward. There's no movement on, but there's moving forward in life. So I share that story because, yes, when you're manifesting anything or just in life, period, I don't believe that there's ever a happy ending. There are bouts of happiness that come through your life, but I don't go through life seeking a happy ending necessarily because sometimes life is just happening to you and it's not pleasant. But despite that, you can still always figure out a bigger dream to dream, a new dream to dream, all of the things. So that's why I wanted to make sure I shared that with you. Now let's talk about how I manifested getting to where I am now. Okay, so for starters, let's walk through my vision board. I have a vision board app on my phone instead of using glue sticks and boards and all that stuff, cutting up magazines. No, I don't like clutter. So yeah, I have a vision board app on my phone we're going to walk through what was on my vision board since I haven't looked at it in over a year. And this is something I like to update every year on my birthday. So let's look at it, go through it, because this is essentially how I work on manifesting. The board itself, that is not necessarily the key to manifesting. The board itself, that is not the key or the tool or the magic tool to manifesting. That just helps you organize your thoughts and like your affirmations and what you want. It's all in here. So let's not forget that. I actually use a vision board app where I kind of like upload the things that I want to my phone. And I'll say that in the past year, well, actually, since Sharpie had passed away, I would not open this vision board. So today, let's actually open it together to see what was all up there. One of them is a big boy range. So I already have a Range Rover, and like the Range Rover I have, that's my baby. I've had it since I was 26, and that was my first car that I bought, brand new. Yeah. So that one I'm a pretty much have forever. But I've always said that I want like a really big Range Rover, the Range Rover HSE, when I get married or whatever, have some kids. But yeah, black on black. So I just love that that's in here. I didn't even remember that I put that in there. Another one is, okay, marriage with someone I admire. I'm attracting a man with integrity, a vision to create family with me and Sharpie, and true chemistry. I trust God's timing in this process. Don't we all love us some Russell Wilson? Okay, intention. It says, my protector is on his way. God is preparing a man who will go to the end of earth for me. The man, sorry, this man loves me deeply, and I feel the same about him. He is my safe space, and we are home for each other. And this is just a picture of like, this is when Beyonce was supposedly pregnant with Blue. And yeah, Jay-Z is like, you know, being protective of her as they go across the street. I like that one. And then, oh, this one. Intention. Buy a condo in NYC adjacent. Come up with $100,000 for a down payment and closing costs. Find a trustworthy realtor. Get my credit score to 800. I'm pretty close. Uh, clear credit card debt and stick to a budget with shopping discipline. Oh, ooh, this is a good one. Intention. Maturing gracefully. Okay, this one, multiply assets by 10. And at that time, it shows a balance that was in the six figures in one of my investment accounts. This is interesting. Intention. Get accepted into law school. High score on LSAT by summer 2024. Yeah, so me and law school have been doing this dance for a few years now, where I have been thinking about going to law school part time. That's a whole nother story for another video. Um, at this point, I'm okay, and turning 33, I'm definitely ready in a few years to be staying at home cheering for my husband in his career. Let's just say that. So I don't know about me in law school anytime soon. Okay, this one, intention, Sharpie to be a big brother. Trust God's timing. And so that was a hard one. And I haven't opened this vision board in over a year now, because just the things that are so attached also to, you know, my idea of Sharpie being here for those things. And again, that's the harsh reality of life. How we see things aren't always as they happen. And one of the things I learned in trauma therapy, learned to come to terms with, is that unfortunately, in this world that we exist in, and as humans, bad stuff is happening around us every day, unfortunately. And so people are going through trauma and tragedy every day. And it is a human experience, a really, really hard one to come to terms with. But I'm saying that because we can have these ideas for our life and all of that. And I think it's good to still have dreams and visions. But also, it's how do you pivot when, life steps in and does the unexpected or the unfortunate. For the one on maturing gracefully, that is going to be attributed to, honestly, the work that I've done in therapy. I have consistently been in therapy since I was around 26. So, since I was 26 years old, I have had a consistent therapist, living in Denver and then living in Georgia. And then more recently, I have a second therapist where we focus on trauma work and I do EDMR. So I started seeing a trauma therapist a year ago upon Sharpie's passing to help me with acute PTSD. And it has been really helpful for healing all areas of trauma throughout my life. Foundationally, I have had a complex upbringing, and so we had to actually do a lot of digging into childhood wounds and trauma. And that impacts who I am as a woman and how I show up in relationships and show up for myself. And so therapy has been really critical to maturing gracefully and being a woman that I am proud of and growing and evolving as a woman each year with every birthday. So now we get to the one on husband. Let me pull up that one for you guys again. That was the one with Russell Wilson in the picture. Marriage with someone I admire, attracting a man with integrity, a vision to create family, etc. So how I am manifesting that is through the work that I'm doing in healing and therapy. So unguarding my heart, being vulnerable as I date, also being able to walk away from things that do not align with my values and what I want for my life in dating. So that doesn't mean that a person is bad at all. It's just not the person for me. And I think every time that I make sure that I lean into my standards and making sure that I am investing time in somebody that their values and desires aligns with my values and desires, every time I make sure that I'm walking away from somebody that does not have that, it only gets me closer to the person that I'm meant to be, for the type of relationship that I'm manifesting and calling into my life. So I'm really proud of the work that I've been doing on that at the age of 32. And it makes me feel hopeful in walking into 33 and knowing that I'm attracting and calling that thing into my life and that someone. All right, what else do we have? So the other one we have is Sharpie to be a big brother. This is definitely a bittersweet one because Sharpie is not physically here anymore. But at the same time, and again, I'm glad I opened this vision board again after a year for the first time with you guys on camera, because I didn't know how I would react seeing that. But in doing this, it also says to trust God's timing, right? So, in one of those things, in turning 33, you know, they say 35 is a big deal. After 35, apparently you're a geriatric pregnancy. So, I guess I'm gonna be a geriatric pregnancy because I'm not rushing to marry anybody and then have a baby the next day. So yeah, I mean, if it happens that way, if I end up having a kid before 35, it's obviously going to be with the right person and it's obviously going to be on God's timing too. But what I'm saying is, in turning 33, that gives me 24 months to 35. We're not rushing this timeline. And so with that said, like having the mentality of, okay, 35 is a little bit around the corner now. How are we going to handle that? How are we going to think about that? And I'm shifting my mind to say, I am aware of that. I'm not going to be delusional about that timeline or anything like that. But at the same time, I'm going to be hopeful. Because if I'm not hopeful and I'm pushing myself to have this microwave life in 24 months, I don't think I'm going to be happy with that. If that naturally happens again because it's God's timing, that's one thing. But I'm not putting those pressures on myself to do that, because I've just seen too many situations where women pressure themselves to have a baby, have the man by 35 or by a certain time, and they end up settling. They end up in a situation that's unhealthy for them, a dynamic that they're not happy with. That is not something I want for my life. I want a happy life. I want a healthy dynamic. I want a dynamic that makes me satisfied, that works for me and who I am. And I know that I can't rush or push a, what did they say? Push a square into a circle, push a circle into a square into a circle to do that. So with that said, I'm very cognizant of where I am at 33 and the things that I want, but I'm going to have to trust God's timing, the universe's timing. But some of the things that I have done to make sure that I'm not putting pressures on myself is that actually 5 years ago, right before I turned 28, I froze my eggs. And the reason why I froze my eggs actually is, so this is vulnerable moment. The reason why I froze my eggs at 27 going on 28 was more so because I have endometriosis. And when I was in my late 20s, I was feeling like I would be in my well into my 30s before I settled down with somebody. I don't know. I just listen to myself. I think I've always been that person that doesn't want to like rush things. So I was like, you know what? It might be a few years. Like, I'm getting close to 30. I have endometriosis. Endometriosis can, in some cases, make it difficult to get pregnant. And the older you are, it can be more challenging to get pregnant. So, if I had those two things working there, feeling like I'm going to be a little bit older when I have my first child, and also have this disorder, I just found that it would be reasonable for me to freeze my egg. So, I did freeze my eggs 5 years ago, and that did actually calm down some of the anxiety. Freezing my eggs for me was more so about insurance. I will say going through IVF, any stage of IVF, because egg freezing is a stage of IVF, it's not for the faint. It's not for the weak. Like, it's not something you want to have to do. So with that said, although I've frozen my eggs, I don't want to have to use my eggs, but it is a sense of security in case me and my partner end up in a situation where we need to resort to that. One of the things I am most proud of going into 33 is that by 32, I reached $500,000 in assets. Yes, I reached $500,000 in assets. I need to pat myself on the back for real, because sometimes I actually beat myself up about money that I could have spent better, invested better. And I like to shop now. So I have a lot of like tangible things. And sometimes I'm like, gosh, that handbag could have been in the stock market or something like that. I am getting better at my spending in that regard. But reaching $500,000 in assets by 32, it's a big feat. Like, it's not a small feat. So that's something I'm really, really proud of myself. And I'll tell you how I got there, because this does ladder into that piece on the vision board, right? Where it says multiply assets by 10. And how I got here was making sure that I pay myself first. So a great way of doing that is making sure you're maxing out your 401k every year. And on top of that, my employer gives me 50 cents on every dollar. So if I didn't do that, I'd be walking away from free money there. On a bi-monthly basis, I invest into my brokerage account into index funds as well. So like the 500 S&P and other large funds like that. I do that 2 times a month. So honestly, I make sure that my paycheck, or like the fun money after my paycheck, I make sure that that's slim and that most of my money is going into investments. I do invest more than I put in my savings account by far, because that is how you grow your wealth and your assets. Now that I'm going into 33 though, something I've always been thinking about is net worth. So I told you about assets, and assets are important, but I also have to balance out my debts. And so I'm a homeowner. That means I have a mortgage, which is a loan from the bank. I do want to caveat that $500,000 in assets does not account for any home equity. So I don't count home equity in that, because if I still have a mortgage, I try not to lean into factoring home equity into my actual assets. I will have to sell a house to be able to touch that money anyway. It's a lot of factors that go into that. So I don't like factoring in equity in a home into actual assets. On top of that, I have student loans, and student loans come with interest. So in this year, I want to focus on how do I make sure I hammer down on my student loans a lot more aggressively, because if the interest keeps growing, that means the balance is growing, and that's eating into my net worth. And I want to make sure that before I'm 40, I would love to have a $1 million net worth. And so I can't just only focus on my assets to do that if I have larger debts as well. I'm okay with the mortgage itself too, because I got locked in at like a 2.9% interest rate, thank God, in 2021. And just also remember, some debts are good debts, like student loans, mortgage. Those aren't necessarily bad debts, but still, student loans are crazy. Student loans are Debo. Like, just coming in, taking your stuff. And I think we touched on most of the pieces that are on my vision board. Now, as I go into 33 in just a few days, how am I truly feeling, like holistically overall? I'm a bit nervous about the move to New York. And I'm nervous to even admit that, but I think with any move and big life change comes a bit of nerves. But you know, something that I heard from the rapper Eve, she did an interview with Angie Martinez earlier this year. And I really loved that interview, by the way. There were a lot of things that were captivating in her interview. But one of the things she said was when she's more excited about something than scared or nervous, she goes for it. So I'm more excited about moving to New York than I am nervous or scared. So that means I know it's right for me. The nerves, being nervous here or there, I think that comes with any type of big life change. I also told myself that, hey, maybe a month or two into getting there and getting settled in, there might be bouts of sadness because it's change. It's a big life change. But I'm reminding myself to be okay with that and sit with those feelings and allow them to exist. And one of the things actually my trauma therapist was telling me in our recent session was I was telling her how I have the holiday blues a bit. Like, just came down with the holiday blues a few days before Thanksgiving. And I was fine before that. And she was raising, like, you've still been in a space of grief for the past year, but also you can be grieving this big change in your life. The New York move is good for you, but also there can be grief that comes with leaving what you have right now, and that's okay. So that's something I'm trying to remind myself as my birthday approaches. And I will say one of the things that's so crazy, I'm more excited about the unknown that I have ever been in life, which is so crazy because as somebody who has, like, I don't know, I've been through a lot in my life. Navigated a lot of uncertainty and things like that, and instability in the foundational years of my life. And because of that, I'm not always okay. Most of the time, I'm not okay with the unexpected. I need to know what's happening. I need to know when. But right now, I am excited for the unknown. I'm like, well, what if this happened? What if this go this way? What if that go that way? What if I'm not living in New York after like a year? I don't know. Like, I'm excited, and I feel like this next chapter, I'm just getting started in a lot of ways. So definitely a 180 from how I was feeling when I turned 32 last year, but we're gonna lean into it. Like Eve said, if I'm more excited than I am nervous, we're gonna lean into it. So thank you for sitting here with me, for going through my vision board with me. And please make sure to like and subscribe so you can see more content from me. I'll see y'all later. Bye.